part of the application form concerning placement. Regarding the placement, this is again, I think I have already mentioned today. If you plan to include internship or placement as a part of your action proposal, this section of the application form should be filled in. This is section 4. If you do not propose any internship, so this part is not relevant and there is a comment there, you have to fill in part 4 only in case if it is relevant to you. Question number 5, I'm associated with a number of organizations. What entity should write a recommendation letter for me? Well, it's up to an applicant to select an organization they feel comfortable to ask for a letter of recommendation. For us, it is important to know that this person is a good person and have qualifications to apply for this fellowship. The only thing I could mention that any reference letter recommendation letter should include like name of a referee that will be giving you this letter. It should, or maybe it should, if it is an organization, it should be headed paper. There should be contact details. It would be nice if a referee will mention information like how long he knows you and maybe assess your skills or accomplishments. So we need to know where you meet, and why he wants to recommend you. Should the application form be submitted in PDF or any other formats? So whatever is Word and PDF versions will be accepted. So if you find it's more convenient to send in PDF, please go ahead. We have the section action timeline. Can I plan starting the activities from September 2019? We don't mind if your activities are planned to start in September, but they have to be completed by the end of November. If you are confident that you will manage to complete your action within 3 months, go ahead. How long will be the capacity building activities? Well, it is hard to advise here how long, because it's up to an applicant to design the action. You have to have in mind what you plan to do and how you're going to reach your planned goals. And based on that, so you have to select how long will it take to design the capacity building activities. So it's very difficult to advise on this issue. Monica, would you like to add anything on that? Should I schedule all?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes.
I'm here. In fact, we are receiving some more questions on the action and to the questions about the extent to which the action can be changed during implementation. And I think maybe it's a good moment to talk about that as well, just to make it very clear. On the capacity the capacity building activities, I think, yes, it depends very much on what kind of project you have in mind. There is no one size fits all for this. It has to be relevant for what you want to do. It has to make sense. But in terms of to what extent you can change the action during the implementation, there are certain things that you for sure cannot change, and can confirm that as the master of the fellowships here. So the budget, you cannot get more than the maximum that is mentioned in the call. So the maximum for your projects will be 5,000 euros per project. This cannot be changed. Also, in terms of duration, normally you cannot go beyond the maximum that Anna mentioned of 6 months. So unless there are some, I guess, very specific circumstances that we would then need to discuss and agree on. But you should, when you design your project right now, you should do it based on the assumption of maximum 5,000 euros, maximum 6 months. Other changes, if those changes are, basically triggered by things that happened and are outside of your control, which can happen, of course. You wanted to, implement certain activities in the community, and something that is completely outside of your control is preventing you to do that, and you need to come up with solutions for that. It's something that you need to discuss with us. And then, of course, we can try to find a solution that works for everyone. So that's it in terms of the extent to what extent you can change your action. But Anna, would you like to add something else here?
Yes, maybe? I would like to point out that our webinar is aimed just how we are going to prepare a successful application. Imagine that put yourself into the shoes of the evaluators. They clearly wrote that the action should be implemented before the end of November. And you're writing a proposal and saying, well, I would like to implement it 8 months or 10 months or 1 year. What do you think how they will react on that? They will say, oh yeah, good guy, they will just reject. So be careful on that. So that's why I highly advise to read the guidelines. And if the timing is stated there, try to fit your proposed action into the 6 months period. Well, maybe you need to reduce the activities or something, or foresee some kind of preliminary results, and then continue later with the follow-up activities or something. But make sure that your proposed implementation plan includes 6 months, May to November, not longer. It can be shorter within this period of time. I mean, it could start in September and then in November. This is fine. This depends on your availability, on your vision when these activities should be implemented. But don't go further than November. So this will not be highly appreciated. This will not be appreciated by the selection committee. Okay, we move further. Should I schedule all capacity development events for the project period? Well, I read this question as should I give the exact dates or exact at least months for the activities? Well, we would like to see a preliminary plan where at least you can state what activity will be implemented in which month. So this will be preliminary planning. It might be slightly changed later, so you can move one event from 1 month to another, but we would like to see the volume of work for each month. We would like to see when you're going to implement most of your activities. Any other questions that I can see here? Maximum fee rates for mentors. You can just don't have maximum. You have a budget of 5,000 euro, maximum one, and it's up to you to distribute and agree with the mentors. So we can't advise on this issue. So you have to implement your action within these amounts of money. So nothing else I can add here.
Should we, maybe I'm sorry if I missed that, should we also touch on the question of co-financing? There is a question on co-financing.
Yeah.
Maybe just to say that we don't have any requirement for co-financing, but of course it's nice if you can get some additional funding on top of the funding that we are providing you, so you can have more of an impact, but it's not like in other cases where you have a requirement for a certain percentage of co-financing, because this is not a normal project grant per se, as Anna was saying. It's an individual fellowship. But if you do want to use the fellowship money for something where you already have some other resources and have a bigger impact, I don't think that's a problem. Have we had that situation, Anna?
Yes, well, in the previous call, we had one action that was actually, there was a proposal for co-financing, and we considered that. Well, it is possible if an applicant would like to propose it, but it should be clear from the proposed action and proposed budget where money are coming from and what they will be used for and what the results are to expect. So it should be explained why co-financing was seen as necessary, like necessary thing for the implementation. So, well, I presume this will be covered in the proposal.
There is also a question on the, or there is also a question on the countries that are eligible for project implementation. So I think there is quite, it's from Anna at 404. So I think there we can clarify that
required implementation.
Yeah. So I think with the exception of internships and maybe the involvement centers, the actions should be in the Eastern Partnership countries, right? If you're understanding correct.
If internship can be done even in any EU countries or any other countries, right? We also, internship will be mostly aimed at the development of skills of a fellow, right? But we also would like to see changes in his community or targeted groups. So, and these changes should definitely be in his country of residence. And these countries of residence, we expect these 6 countries that we are covering. So that were mentioned before.
Yeah, so basically, it's, as I was saying, with the exception of the internship, which can take place outside of the region, the other actions you have in mind should take place and should be implemented
in the region,
in one of the countries. Yeah,
at least in one of the countries. We will stick with our questions first, and then we will respond to what we are receiving now.
Okay.
Questions from the chat, so otherwise we'll never finish. Maybe we can cover the questions that the participants are typing. So we have action proposal, topics for proposed actions. There were a number of questions regarding the sectors. Monica, maybe I will ask you to cover more on that question.
If you've read the guidelines, you probably saw that there are no specific topics. So we don't want to restrict you to only certain topics or certain priorities. Again, also something that if you were in any case in other situations involved, for example, in calls, yes, you probably saw that there you have priorities and you have to focus on certain topics. It's not the case here for the fellowship. However, if you've carefully read the guidelines, you probably saw that we are giving a list of an indication of broad areas of activities that we think would be relevant for the fellowships. And those activities are basically coming from what we perceive to be the main roles of civil society in general anyways. So things like holding governments and public authorities in general to account for what they are doing. Things like if you are somehow interested in research, you can have, if I could please ask if I could mute their microphones, because this is really, it's making, it's quite disturbing. If you want to include research components, for example, into your actions, that's fine, but please keep in mind that research cannot be the main goal of your action. It has to somehow be linked to either recommendations to policymakers, or it has to be as a basis for raising awareness about certain issues in your communities. So it cannot be the main purpose, but it has to come within text, which is about either raising awareness or advocacy, or any other type of interaction that you may think of with the decision makers in your country or region, or with the your target groups or communities. So that's why so in fact, this sums up what we wanted to tell you. There are no topics as such, but there are main areas of activities that we would expect you would have in mind anyways, such as the policy papers, such as the advocacy campaigns, and in general all types of activities that would help you better tailor, you or your organizations better tailor your activities to the citizens' needs. We had in previous calls, because of the way things are evolving, actions on e-transparency and e-participation. Again, these are just indications. These are not things that you should consider as topics that you absolutely have to fall within. So propose something that makes sense for you, something that makes sense for your community, and then that should be fine.
Well, maybe to add a little bit more, that if you propose only research, if your proposal will include only research part, it will not be sufficient. It will not be sufficient. It will not be well scored, because this will not have. This will not bring positive change to your community straight away. We will expect a little bit more to be developed, so a little bit more to be done. Only research will not be taken, will not be scored high. So I think we have already answered about question 2. Regarding the number of questions here mentioned, is anti-corruption campaign can be considered as a fellowship action? Well, yes, it's if you looked at that topics mentioned in the guidelines, it is there. Sport topics is also, please go ahead. If this brings positive changes in your community, it's also good. We would like to find out more about action plan and its implementation. It is not fully clear. It is not fully clear what exactly what is action plan and implementation. You have to propose action plan, and also stages. Well, you will define the stages of implementation of your action. What is percentage of application or projects, in your opinion, really has sustainability after the end of financing? Well, we don't have such a figure at this stage, but at the same time, we consider that all our fellows who received funding, they definitely developed their leadership skills, and this can be considered as sustainability of the actions they implemented. Some of the actions were, well, we have to just keep a good track of records. And these figures are changing maybe every day. That's why I'm not able to answer these questions with exact figure, but definitely I'm pretty sure the sustainability of the component of leadership skill development, it is there, and we can be proud saying, yeah, everyone gained new skills during our fellowship program, those fellows who are part of our alumni network. So maybe we can say,
if I may add here, if I may add a couple of words here. So I fully agree with Anna that here, when you think of sustainability, you should think very much also in terms of how the fellowship will impact you as a professional and as hopefully a future leader in your country. And from this point of view, yes, we think that all of our fellowships are sustainable because we are bringing all of these new skills to those who are benefiting from the fellowships. However, if in your proposal, when you put together your proposal for your projects, you already have in mind some sort of follow-up action. You know that because you're working, with certain people, you have certain partners, they might be able to take on board and to continue some of the work that you're starting within the fellowship after the fellowship ends. Or if you think that you can somehow by cooperating with like-minded people from other countries, replicate your project in other countries. If you really think that's the case, then it is worth mentioning it in your proposal. But you shouldn't worry too much about it. You shouldn't include something just for the sake of including it. But if there is something that came out of the design of your action that you think is worth mentioning, then please go ahead and mention it. But the main idea that you should keep in mind here is that for us the sustainability comes from giving you more skills and giving you more opportunities to not only skills but also giving you more opportunities to interact with decision makers in your countries in the EU level, which is something that we have started to do more and more with the fellows from the previous years. So yeah, as I said, if there is something that you really would like to mention, do mention it in your proposal, but don't worry too much about it.
Okay, questions about budget. Maybe we have already answered a number of them. In case I require an expert or a mentor and I would like to hire him, what type of payment would I need to provide in the field of fees or technical expert and mentor fees? As I mentioned before, you have to first of all describe that in your proposal that you need a specialist, let's say a mentor or an expert for the implementation of your action, and define the role of this person in your action implementation. And based on that, you can include, as you can put it, if you see it's a mentor role or technical expert role, and include it based on per hour, per day, but you have to state how you're going to pay this person. It depends of the involvement of this person in your implementation, maybe per day, per month, per week. I don't know what kind of role you foresee, and depend of that role, so you will include these costs into your budget. Number 2, cost of conference seminars. Does it mean the participation in conferences and seminars that will help me to acquire certain useful skills to better execute my project and develop my leadership skills? Well, if, for example, instead of internship, you decide to participate in specific schools or seminars and you have something in mind, you can include participation. So you can include this activity, participation in seminar, and the cost associated with this participation will be included, what this be? Could be seminar participation fee. This will be maybe international or national travel. It could be per diems during participation. Depends what is involved in that activity. But don't forget to include all the costs. If it is visa, as I mentioned before, visas, insurances. But you have to have in mind what exactly you are going to. It's not like, I probably will participate in something during that 6 months, and that's why I included costs. This will not work. So we would like to know what kind of seminar you plan to attend, where, and what skills you plan to gain during that participation. It's not just about to travel and have a great time. this participation should be aimed to development of your leadership skills. I would like to know more about eligible costs, for example, about training course fees, limits, and daily rates for mentors. Well, again, I think I have already mentioned that you can include this, but participation in training course should be part of your proposal, and this should be clearly described why you think that this will help to develop your leadership skills and why this will bring positive changes in your communities. So make sure you will clearly describe this. Limit of daily fee rates, we don't have guidelines on that. Well, it depends how much mentors will be involved in your action. So if you would like to pay all 5,000 to your mentor, so I don't know if this would be a good idea. Have I got it right that the fellowship fund can't be allocated as a salary paid to the fellow? Yes, this is correct. Fellow will participate in networking events held abroad. Do we have to consider consular fees associated with the visa obtained in the budget? If so, what countries will it be? All successful applicants will join alumni network of our fellows. And within this alumni network, we are organizing a number of events during the year where we expect that new fellows will participate. All costs associated with participation in such events will be covered by the project, and they shouldn't be budgeted in your fellowship application. These are additional benefits in participating in this program. How to calculate and reduce costs? Good question. Well, first of all, you have to think what kind of expenses might occur during the implementation. Secondly, you have to Google it to explore what people are saying, maybe send a few emails and quotes, receive few quotes. How much will it cost to, for example, to develop and print out a banner, or how much will it cost to print or to rent a venue or something else? So ask your friends. What else Monica, do you have any other advices? So you have to explore this topic yourself. So no one else can basically advise you how to calculate it.
Yeah, so I think here you just need to apply a very commonsensical approach. Like Anna was saying, for certain things you can ask for quotes from companies or from service providers. For other things you need to do a very short sort of market research to see how much those items usually cost. You can ask your friends, you can ask your colleagues, you can ask your family, you can refer to other projects that you are maybe putting together. It's never an easy thing to do. So you just need to use all of the common sense possible to try to have some estimates that are relatively accurate for the different items that you will have in there. It's always good to leave yourself a bit of margin in case you underestimate certain costs. Obviously, it's always a matter of keeping a decent balance and not inflating then other costs just for the sake of it. So we don't have any maximum per type of expense. We don't have any thresholds for specific items. It's just the maximum for the overall fellowship that you already know of, and other than that, within your budget, you have to try to estimate your costs as accurately as possible based on all of the information you have available. There is no simple answer to that. We can't unfortunately help you too much here, because you know a lot better than us how much things cost in your city, in your country, and that's the best. Just use your best guess.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I also wanted to advise on another source of information. You probably can go to our project website, look at the profiles of the current fellows, and get in contact with them. Maybe they can help with some of the questions regarding the budget. So this would be another advice. Or otherwise, you can contact those fellows who have some kind of similar topic, similar action that might help you to estimate the cost. So just get in contact with these people and just talk to them. Okay, are the following costs allowable under the fellowship? Purchase of a web domain, hosting for a certain period of time, purchase of specific software intended to implement the envisaged project activities. Well, probably yes, if these costs are necessary for achieving planned results. So you definitely can include these costs into your budget. But if you just would like to obtain all these and do nothing, there is no specific objectives of your action apart from just getting the web domain and get the software. So then this will not work.
And then, of course, for issues like hosting, obviously, you should be covering only the hosting for the period of the fellowship action. So, you should try, as Anna was saying, the most important thing is that this kind of, all of your costs are clearly related to your activities. And then on top of that you limit whatever payment you are making, whatever purchase you are making to the time period of the fellowship action as well. So try to keep those things in mind when you put your budget together.
Okay. Now we come into the question regarding host organizations. Do I necessarily have to have a mentor or operate within a certain civil society organization to be eligible for fellowship? No, well, as I mentioned before, so to have a mentor or to have internship, it is not obligatory. It depends on the idea of your action. And if you think it is necessary to have it, you will include it. If not, so it's up to you. Is it required to have an arrangement or definite commitment of a particular EU or EAP host? If you have planned to have an internship, ideally, it would be nice to have preliminary arrangements to get in touch and with the organization, discuss timing. There were a couple of cases with the previous fellows when they had arrangements. They had preliminary arrangements, but they never discussed the timing for internship. And then an organization was not able to take this fellow during that implementation period. So that's why we highly advised to discuss with the host organization when you plan to come, what you plan to study, what kind of skills you expect, so the people who will be working here will be available and can reserve time for you. And this means so the period spent in that organization will be more effective. But if you plan to have an internship, you have a plan what kind of skills, what kind of let's say training program you would like to get. But you haven't managed to secure preliminary arrangements. This is okay. You probably we can do this later, but you have to be proactive. If at the moment I do not have host organization, can I find it before the project implementation period? So as I said, so it would be nice to have that arrangement, but if not, it will not prevent you from submitting application. Can you provide an example of an organization? If yes, can a host or a partner of a project be a co-working or non-profit organization? Not clear question. Maybe we can discuss this a little bit later with the person submitted that question. I would probably will stick to the question 5. Now, please advise on how to choose a mentor and requirements for them. Well, again, so as I mentioned before, you will need a mentor if you feel that in some fields of your action, you are not confident and you need someone more experienced to guide you. In this case, you need a mentor. And for this specific work, so you have to define yourself what kind of person would be ideal to guide you in the process of implementation of your action or in the process of completing certain parts of the action, maybe one of the activities only. It is not possible to give that advice right now. Monica, would you add anything here?
No, I don't think I can add much here at this stage.
Okay.
On the mentor?
Yes. In the guidelines, okay, I'll just then stick to the other. In the guidelines, it is said that the location of action can serve the EU as well. Could you please elaborate on this issue? May the fellowship be held in an EU country at a host organization? Well, as I mentioned before, so it is possible to have an internship in the EU, in the host organization, but only internship for the action proposal will not be sufficient. You also have to do something else. We do understand that you go to a host organization, you gain some skills, some knowledge. You also have to show that you are able to implement the gained skills and knowledge in your country. There should be some proposed activities that will bring positive changes in your community or in your target group. I have contacted 3 potential host organizations, but none of them agreed to be my host organization. What shall I do? There is one question here. First of all, when you're contacting your potential host organization, you have to give a clear indication when you plan to come, why you selected this organization, and what training program, what knowledge, skills you would like to receive during the period you will be with them. I think in most of the cases when you are contacting organization and asking them exactly what you would like to get from your internship, well, in most of the cases the organization would be happy to take you on board, especially when you mentioned that you will pay them a small amount of money. Well, there will be an incentive for them. This is one thing. Secondly, if you are still not successful, you can make a proposal on your foreseen study program, and you can continue search. There are plenty of civil society organizations in the region and also in the EU. I'm sure you can find a perfect post organization for yourself, and you will get skills. In case you will not be able to do so, we as a project might try to help you to get in contact with the organization we know. But at this stage, I can't advise anymore, so it is up to an applicant to be proactive. Okay, we are coming to the end of questions. So maybe we can answer now the questions that were submitted to at the chat.
And I think it's also the moment to encourage everyone to write additional questions if we haven't answered the questions till now. Maybe just for 10, maybe we can give ourselves 10 more minutes.
Yeah, there was a question, where can I find the previous project? So you can see the profiles of the fellows at our website and read the information about the actions they implemented. You can find these people on Facebook.
Someone was also asking about the budgets of the previous projects, and if I'm not mistaken, the budgets are not publicly available. But
yeah, they are not publicly available. Why I suggested just look at the actions, and probably the description of the action can give you a hint who might give you an advice. Oh, well, especially if you are going to implement in your country, it might worth to talk to current fellows from your country, and they can give you more information. Based on their permission, I can share some contacts. So you can contact me and tell, okay, so I would like to contact this or that person. I will put you in touch.
We also have a question on whether it is allowed to prepare a proposal to develop an ongoing campaign. So I guess there we would need to have a bit more information. In general, we don't provide support to existing projects, which is a different thing.
Yes, well, there is a question of double financing here, and it will be in some cases impossible to see what have been already done or financed. So ideally it should be a separate action. And new action.
We have a question on whether an internship in England is eligible. Well, I guess they will still be part of the EU when the deadline closes. So yeah.
Well, I would not propose this. Well, you never know what happened at the end of.
Yeah. Well, it has to be justified. We have to understand why necessarily England. But yeah, I mean, leaving jokes aside, it's something that you can propose.
Well, you can propose maybe an option saying that, okay, I have in mind these 3 or 5 organizations to have me for internship. And then after and submit such applications, I mean, your application including a list of organizations that you're considering. Otherwise, I can't see any other option in this case, especially with England. And what happened in March, we don't know.
There was another question on a sample for a recommendation letter from the host organization. I don't think we can provide that, and there is no template as such. I think Anna was mentioning previously during the webinar that well, you should